Always cash crisis worse. Talking about Venezuela once again.
Systemic important banks. They removed the 1,000 called monetary awareness.
Hey there, hope all is well. Happy Monday to you. I just wanted to check in for a quick minute with the latest news updates and reference to some stories that caught my attention. It has to do more with the further de-dollarization push, or as it says here, the yuan-ization, where it looks like China is for the most part forcing its trading partners, or highly recommending its trade partners, to lessen their interactions in using the dollar and to increase the role of the yuan, aka renminbi, in trade, even though the deals are small at this current moment. But it continues to play into the whole idea of providing naturally rich, resourceful countries with alternatives beyond the dollar. So I just want to check in real quick, share with you a story about China's continual expansion through the African continent. So as always, if you guys want to see more of these little short stories covering what I consider to be some important developments in the international monetary scene, definitely hit the thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. I do my best I can to try to get these things out in a short and timely fashion. So let's dive in. So here we got the article that caught my attention from Watchers Guru. A little bit exaggerated, but then again, you get the point. It says BRICS 2 billion copper trade to be paid in Chinese yuan, not US dollars. And one of the highlights of this article here just talks about how it says BRICS members, China is convincing African nations to ditch the US dollar and trade in the Chinese yuan for cross-border transactions. It says that Bank of China's office in Zambia is pushing to increase trade in the Chinese yuan in southern Africa. Zambia is Africa's second largest producer of copper, and China is the world's biggest consumer of copper. So that plays hand in hand with making sure that you always got direct access to what your country needs most. It says, therefore, BRIC members China is looking to capitalize on international copper trade by making Zambia accept the Chinese yuan and ditch the US dollar. And the details of this article comes from this headline out of Market Insiders last week, and has some of the same information here, just a little bit more in depth, and has an interesting quote here from China's vice president that I thought I'd bring to your attention. He says, this comes from Lin Xingzhen. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but he says, we will earnestly act upon our responsibility and leverage our role in Zambia to support other African countries to provide holistic services and to promote the use of RMB in bilateral trade and economic activities. So key takeaways from this: leverage our role, which they've been doing for quite some time now, funding all the activity happening in Africa for their own interests, providing holistic services and products related to the RMB. So what could that mean? Not only issuing currency swaps, but also probably issuing loans to these nations, which they have been doing for quite some time now, denominated in the yuan, especially since there seems to be a dollar crisis around the world due to the Fed's quantitative tightening process of dollars to service their current debt. It goes on to say, while China has been the champion of the de-dollarization trend of countries attempting to reduce their dependence on the greenback, Beijing also has a key supply chain interest in Africa. It says copper also contributes to 70% of Zambia's foreign export earnings, and its economy has been wobbly in the aftermath of the whole pandemic situation, with high inflation driving the kwacha to a record low just this year. In June, China helped the country strike a deal to restructure $6.3 million in debt owed to foreign governments. Lastly, it says China has been advancing the de-dollarization shift in other African countries as well. Earlier this year, Egypt issued a yuan-denominated panda bonds for the very first time. So this clearly is the first step in trying to make the Chinese yuan more liquid by opening up the debt markets outside their own country. And it says beyond Africa, China has signed multiple currency swap agreements with countries like Argentina, Saudi Arabia. So them encouraging a further use of the renminbi is basically a yuanization or the yuanification campaign that they're on to do business outside of their country, not relying upon the Western Hemisphere's currency or payment structures. So this is definitely something we're paying attention to. So it's becoming more and more clear that the Chinese influence in our region is not necessarily about competing with the West, but position themselves for the future that they have in store with that continent by being able to access all the rich resources they need, issue their own, and then slowly but surely begin to set up the offshore debt markets, which will make the yuan more attractive for those regions. But anyway, this is what's happening in the news. Thought I would just share my 2 cents on how yuanization, as I call it, is there and it's not going anywhere. It's probably going to increase. And as more nations turn to the yuan, that means they'll need less of the USD. So just something to stay in tune with. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. As always, if you find any value, hit that thumbs up, share this so more people can find out what's happening outside of what we're being told here. And I'll catch you guys later.